Hello everyone and welcome back to Build Fix. If you would like to build a computer, especially for gaming, and you're stuck just choosing the parts, then you've come to the right place. I'm going to be covering 4 builds today that have been submitted by viewers like you that are in desperate need of my help.
Excellent!
Okay, perhaps desperate need is too strong of a statement, but let me explain how this series works. Every month, typically at the beginning of the month, if I'm not distracted by a large event like Computex, I will post a community post like this one here, asking for you guys to submit your builds. This month we're doing a new PC edition, so I'm focusing on new builds, although I occasionally cover upgrades as well. And I'm just asking you to send me a list. Let me know the monitor that you're using, specifically the resolution and refresh rate, because that's a big impact on what graphics card you want to choose. And this series is sponsored and powered by PCPartPicker.com, so you can use their website to assemble a parts list of your choosing, using their builder to choose all the stuff like CPU, cooler, motherboard, memory, etc. Or you can just send me a text list, that works too. There's also a poll, FYI, it's completely unrelated to the question, but incidentally, Spades won this month. But let's dive into it with our first build, submitted by Cameron Fry 5514, and this one is actually already assembled. The build came together over the last 8 months. Some bits were from previous builds and got upgraded, and some parts were also part of a Micro Center package deal, which is a great way to get deals if you have access to a Micro Center. So here's the list. We're looking at an AMD AM5 based system with a Ryzen 7 7700X. We have an all-in-one liquid cooler. We have a B650 motherboard, 32 gigs of RAM, a solid 6 terabyte storage configuration via 2 drives, a RX 7900 XT graphics card, fractal design North case, and a 750 watt power supply. The monitor is the very popular Gigabyte G34WQC, which is a 3440 by 1440, 144 Hz curved display. Not counting the monitor, we're looking at a total price of just over $2,000 if you were to buy all these components straight up. But as Cameron mentioned, the prices we're seeing aren't necessarily the price that was paid. But to answer the question, what would I have done differently if I was to be assembling a system with parts similar to this? I'm going to be honest with you here, Cameron. I chose this one because it's a little bit of a softball, and I'm going to be reiterating something that I've said multiple times before. But let me talk about the things that you've done right first. Starting off with your motherboard here, a nice solid B650 motherboard, less than $150. In a world where motherboards can easily cost $300 plus, this is a solid choice. Doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles, but it's gonna get the job done. Likewise, you've made a good choice with the memory here. It's a DDR5 6000 speed kit, which is the sweet spot for this platform. It's 32 gigabytes, and if you're investing in a new DDR5 kit, I would say go for 32 gigs at least via 2 16 gig sticks. It's reasonably priced, and it's G.Skill's Flare X5 series, which means it is AMD Expo compatible, so you can easily plug in your memory speed and get it running properly. I like that you have a full 6 terabytes of storage here, also via NVMe drives, so they're both going to be nice and speedy. It's tough to speak to the prices here because I'm not sure exactly what you paid. Storage can get expensive, but that's always something that you can add on at a later date if you want to start out with something simple like a 1 or 2 terabyte drive. I applaud the fact that you've gone with an RX 7900 XT at $700. This is a high-end graphics card, but of course this is where you get into some tough competition with NVIDIA. You get a lot of bang for your buck with the RX 7900 XT and XTXs. You also get lots of VRAM with 20 gigs. And this one's reasonably priced too, at about $700. You're not necessarily overpaying like $800 plus like some of these other options cost. Because if you're gonna play over 800, you might as well just claw your way up to a 7900 XTX. Likewise, we have a solid choice for a power supply, 80 plus gold rated, and I've already mentioned that's a good monitor. So what would I change from this build? I would change the CPU and the liquid cooler. You have about a $275 CPU plus a $140 liquid cooler, and the 7700X is a totally fine choice for gaming. It's just not going to be quite as good as the 7800X 3D. The 7800X 3D will allow you to squeeze a bit more performance out of the RX 7900 XT. The 7800X 3D is only about $65 more, and you can also save more than $100 potentially on the cooler that you chose. Simply swapping that all-in-one for one of Thermalright's excellent options down in the $30 to $40 range. We have the Peerless Assassin. We'll just drop in the Phantom Spirit, it's $36. So this combo here is about $370 before tax, and that's less than the $415 that you'd be paying with that all-in-one. So there it is, that's what I would change with this build, and I don't hate all-in-one liquid coolers, I just think they're situational, and here you would get more performance for less money, and that is always a win for me. Our next build was submitted by Black Belt 9980. Hi, I have a friend doing their first build in over 10 years. Current GPU is an R9 290. And they're looking for something in the $800 range that will last the next 5 years or so for 1080p, entry level 1440. And again, we can include Micro Center deals, and that's a great advantage, again, if you live close enough to a Micro Center to go in store. They have great deals, so we will be addressing that. Now, since we're sticking to a budget here, we have an AM4 build that is AMD's last gen platform, so not as much of an upgrade path there, but you do have some great deals such as the 5800X3D. And here we also have a Thermalright Peerless Assassin air cooler, which is a solid recommendation that you've seen me give if you've watched this series much at all. We also have a B550 Plus motherboard, a G-Skill Ripjaws 5 16 gig kit, 1TB NVMe SSD, an RTX 4060 8 gig Corsair 3000D airflow case, and a 650 watt 80 plus gold rated power supply, currently coming in at just over $1,000. So we're gonna go ahead and edit this parts list and talk about the things that I might change out. And since we're already on AM4, I'm not gonna try to talk you out of that. It's a great choice, and the 5800X3D has proven to have pretty long legs and be able to keep up with a decent range of graphics cards. And it's especially gonna be a good deal if you can access something like Micro Center. So I'm gonna quickly check out their website just to see what kind of deals are being offered. We can see the 5800X3D right here, and please note that I'm currently locked into my local location, which is down in Tustin here in Southern California. You do need to choose your location or your store at first in order for Micro Center to tell you what's available at your particular location. We can already see the cheapest part here on PCPartPicker, which doesn't include Micro Center, is $330 at Amazon for the 5800X3D. We're immediately getting a $30 discount down to $300. But then check this out, special savings with 16 gigs DDR4 3200 plus motherboard bundle savings. And here we can immediately see where this combo comes from, the 5800X3D, Tough Gaming B550 Plus, and this same G-Skill Ripjaws 5 memory kit, which would total you close to $400, maybe just $5 shy or so. Over at Micro Center, $330 for that entire combo with all three of those. If we subtract that from the total, it'll bring it down to $950 or so. So this is just me reminding you guys to reality check Micro Center again if you have one close enough to you. For some people, it's just too far away. But beyond that, much like the previous build, I think you have pretty solid choices all around here. I'm gonna say except for one thing. I'm sorry, I'll say except for two things. The memory kit could go up to 32 gigs. That would be something that would be high on my priority list for upgrades. That said, if it's part of that combo, that's probably part of the reason they're able to sell that combo so cheap, is because 16 gig kits are becoming slightly less desirable these days. But here's the rub for me. The RTX 4060 8 gig at $285. I just don't feel like NVIDIA has compelling options compared to the competition down in the sub $300 range. NVIDIA hasn't been very kind to entry-level buyers recently. So I've gone ahead and manually entered the price for that Micro Center combo just so we can assess it properly, the 5800X3D, B550 motherboard, and that memory kit. And that makes the price around $900. You said $800, and then the list you sent was $1,000, so I'm trying to stick kind of within that range. And the main thing I'm looking at changing possibly here is the graphics card. Now, if you really want to go with NVIDIA, an RTX 4060 is probably going to be pretty much your only viable option unless you want to dip into the secondary or used market. And this WindForce card had a $15 rebate that has gone away now. So your options here are around $290 for the cheapest one, and just take your pick of these three. And in this case, your build is totally fine, I would say. You could probably save, I don't know, 20, 30, maybe up to $50 by getting a little bit more picky with your case and power supply combo. But these are solid choices from Corsair. Now, the one thing I would say maybe consider doing is spending a few more dollars on a video card upgrade that would get you a lot more performance if you're willing to go the AMD route. And if you're looking around $300 for AMD cards, don't get the 7600 XT, especially for over $300. It is not a good option. What I was gonna say is go for a 6750 XT, and those were selling for as little as $300. I even saw one for less than $300, although since they're slightly older cards, the prices tend to go up and down a little bit. If you can find one around $300, it's totally a good drop-in option, but the step up from there, I think, is definitely gonna be the RX 6800. That's gonna get you like 40% on average better rasterization frame rates versus the RTX 4060. It also gives you a 16 gig VRAM buffer, and these are going for as little as $360 for this XFX one right now. It's out of stock at B&H, but it is available on Amazon, and double checking, yes, it's even shipped from and sold by Amazon, not a shady third-party seller. So I dropped that in, and here is the direction I would lean, still staying within your $1,000 original list that you sent over, not quite as close to the $800 price that you had also said, but it is going to represent a big step up in your base gaming performance with that RX 6800, as well as pretty much double the VRAM buffer to work with. Our next build is from Archaic Joker. This will be a new build for gaming, similar monitors to what I have now. On the fence about the GPU, 12 gigs or 16 gigs. We do like the case and want to stick with it. Current setup is a 3700X and an RTX 3070, so this should be a nice upgrade. And also some very good questions now, like should I wait for Ryzen 9000 X3D, possibly RTX 5070 and 5080? And for a lot of people, this is a big question right now. AMD has announced the Ryzen 9000 series of processors. They're supposed to launch next month in July. There is probably going to be 9000 X3D CPUs launching maybe later this year as well. So if you're investing in a PC right now, are there going to be new things launching really soon that might make you say, oh, I should have waited? Here's a look at the actual parts list though. We have the venerable 7800X3D, which is really the top tier CPU you should be aiming for if your goal specifically is a focus on gaming. We also have an all-in-one liquid cooler, a B650M power supply, and if you guys are looking at some of the images, you might notice that this is a white build. Total price is just over $1,000, and we have a couple MSI 1080 165Hz curved displays. So a few notes right out of the gate. If you're sticking to a color scheme, especially if you're trying to go all white, you're probably going to end up spending a bit more money than you would if you were not trying to stick to a color scheme, just because the availability of white components is a little bit more limited, and there tends to be a price premium associated with some of them because people who get locked into white builds are only looking for those kinds of components. That said, you don't necessarily need to overpay that much, and some of your choices here, like this very reasonably priced ASRock B650M motherboard, are not going to be more expensive than what you would pay for otherwise. Look, it even has a fixed I/O shield, Wi-Fi integrated, and 2.5 gig LAN. Ooh, and a USB 3.2 Gen 2 front panel port. One thing I would question is your monitors here. Since you've chosen two of the same monitor, a curved monitor is gonna have a sweet spot for where you sit, which is right at the center of the monitor, which is why curved monitors are generally okay. I kind of question why you buy two of these monitors, because you're probably only gonna be gaming on one of them at a time, so the gaming features like the high refresh rate aren't going to be really leveraged much on the secondary monitor. Having them match might be something that you're going for. Getting three of them so you can do wraparound, like triple monitor setup, would also be like a good gaming setup. So maybe that's something that you're aiming for in the future, but what I would suggest considering, especially if you ever want to do any like video editing, color correction work, is getting one monitor that's better suited for gaming, like a higher refresh rate, 1080 type display. And then maybe consider getting something that's more of a production style monitor, like a ProArt series monitor, maybe higher resolution like 1440, and maybe a better color depth monitor with a IPS panel or something along those lines. And again, that's just because it's a two monitor setup, you're probably not going to be gaming on the second monitor. Just something I would consider. As for the hardware choices in the rest of the build, I think you've made pretty good choices so far. This is a slightly more expensive power supply, but it's 850 watt, 80 plus gold rated, and it does come with all white cables, which is something you probably want if you're going for an all-white build, and that's going to save you on having to buy sleeved extensions. For the graphics card, we're also paying a premium. You can find 4070 Ti Supers for well under $800. So maybe you're really sold on the look of the MSI card, but swapping in the Zotac Gaming Trinity OC saves us $40 right now and sticks with the white color scheme. I believe you said the case was already purchased, and $105 for this Zalman P30 isn't too bad. So the last thing is gonna be the AIO. And you guys are probably like, oh, he's gonna tell him to swap the AIO for a liquid cooler again. No, I'm not. You want an AIO, go for an AIO. You've got a 7800X3D. There's not a whole lot of range to go upwards from that for gaming at least. So if you wanna go the AIO route at this point, I say go for it. But this Cooler Master Liquid 360 Atmos is not all white. It's not matching the color scheme. Let's see if we can get you something that matches. For this, I'm gonna use PCPartPicker's Color Picker. They have color options over here, and we're just looking for white choices. All right, so I think I've chosen pretty much all the color choice range options that I would want. And then for CPU coolers, we also have a water-cooled option over here, so I'm just gonna choose yes. And we'll stick with the 360mm AIO like the one you chose. And look at that, we have some of Thermalright's equally competitively priced all-in-one liquid coolers coming in here. And I'm really just kind of amazed that Thermalright can sell these for as cheap as they do. Look, even if you wanted to stick with Cooler Master, they have the Master Liquid 360L Core for just about $89. So epic, pretty good range of choices here, but since we're trying to stick to a budget, let's do this one. The Aqua Elite All right, boom. We have essentially the same build, very similar. We've saved you some money. All right, so here's our revised build. We have a more matchy and much less expensive all-in-one liquid cooler. We've stuck with a lot of your solid choices that match the color scheme and are also very reasonably priced. We potentially saved $40 or so on an equivalent RTX 4070 Ti Super. And again, I offered some advice as to the monitor setup, but if you really just wanted two that matched and looked nicely on the desk together, don't let me talk you out of that one. Thank you very much, Archaic Joker, for your submission. We have one more, and this one comes from Jay the Caffeinator. Jay is a longtime viewer. He actually likes Joe's videos better than I do.
Bruh.
Wait, that's not what I wanted. Jay is a longtime viewer. He actually likes my editor Joe's videos better than the ones that I make, but that's okay. Jay had a Be Quiet build given to him. Jay, I don't know who you're friends with. You have very nice friends if they're just dropping this Be Quiet build in your lap. And Jay's asking me a couple things. He's asking me if he wants him to send me coffee like he sends Joe. And Jay, I've seen how much coffee you send Joe. Right now we are fully stocked up, so in the interest of not making my house and my living space any more cluttered than it already is, I will say keep sending coffee to Joe for now. He needs it so he can edit the videos faster. And I will instead answer your other question, how to spend $1,000 to potentially upgrade this system. And that system is this one right here, featuring a Core i7-12700K, a Be Quiet Pure Loop 2 all-in-one cooler, a nice Asus TUF Z690 motherboard with overclocking capabilities. We have a nice Lexar Hades RGB RAM kit, as well as an NM620 1TB NVMe SSD, MSI Gaming X Trio Radeon RX 6750 XT graphics card, the Be Quiet Pure Base 500FX case, and the Pure Power 11FM 750 watt power supply, as well as some Lightwings fans. And I was looking at this and thinking to myself, wow, I chose this because I wanted to address an Intel build in this video because I've been kind of heavy on AMD recently. And then I thought, oh, this build looks really familiar. And he put a link to the build video, and it's because I built this system. This is a system I built at the old office back in August 2022, and then this system was given away in our Extra Life charity event. Which is nice, because it means like you guys can take a look at the actual finished product here. Look at the nice sexy B-roll. What a nice smooth pan that is. Sometimes I miss the old office, but I don't miss paying for it. But it is interesting to come back to a build like this a couple years after the fact and consider what might we upgrade. But let's address more broadly anyone who might be in this situation. If you have a current Intel platform build with like a 12th gen processor that's a couple years old right now, something like the 12700K, you might be considering an upgrade at this point, but you're also probably still good. A 12700K is still a totally excellent processor for gaming. And in terms of potential upgrades, you have the 13th and 14th gen, but those are really only marginal improvements, especially when it comes to just pure gaming performance. So when I first looked at this, I thought, this is a DDR4 motherboard, so maybe an upgrade to DDR5 might be a good choice. But to do that, you'd have to gut the motherboard and the memory, and then potentially upgrade the CPU as well. So you'd be spending a lot of that $1,000 on the DDR5 switch. And then if you're upgrading your core components, it brings the AM5 platform into play as a potential option there. And that becomes a harder sell because there you have a longer upgrade path, and you have the 7800X3D, which is widely regarded as the best CPU for gaming right now. So with that taken into consideration, and also because you're already running with a 32 gig memory kit, I think these core components should stay as is, which means the main thing you would upgrade is the graphics card. And yes, you could totally upgrade this graphics card. If we're swapping out the graphics card, we want to make sure that the new one fits in the case, and we also want to make sure we have enough wattage for it. Fortunately, PCPartPicker has both of those things built in to their compatibility filter. And these are the GPUs I would consider upgrading to. On the AMD Radeon side, the 7900 XT or the 7900 XTX. And on the NVIDIA side, the 4070 Super if you're trying to keep things a little bit more reasonably priced. Or of course, there's the 4070 Ti Super or the 4080 Super if you really do want to use up that $1,000 upgrade budget. And from there, it just becomes a question of how much money you want to spend. The 4070 Super, as mentioned, is going to be the best bang for the buck in this category at about $580 to $600. And yes, down here you might consider something like the 7900 GRE as well. For about $100 more, you start to get into the 7900 XT range in the high $600 to low $700 range. If you want to stick to NVIDIA, but you want something more than the 4070 Super, 4070 Ti Super starts at about $770 to $790. And then 7900 XTXs are over $900 at this point. And at that point, I would say just opt for the 4080 Super and you'll spend $1,000 on that. These two cards might be stretching that 12700K just a tad, and depending on whether or not you're willing to do some overclocking. So I'm gonna make the possibly controversial choice of recommending something in the middle of that range. The 4070 Ti Super is gonna give you a really nice experience across a range of applications, whether you're talking about gaming or you wanna do something like stable diffusion AI rendering, and you're still gonna have a little bit of cash left over from your $1,000 investment. And the cheapest of these available right now is the Zotac Gaming Trinity, which is a good one of those. So there is the upgraded build. Again, some minor changes, but talked you through my thought process on whether or not I would want to change anything else. And hey, if you sold off that 6750 XT to help pay for this, then you probably have, you know, $500 plus left to spend on games or more coffee to send Joe, presumably. But guys, that is going to wrap it up for this episode of Build Fix, and a huge thank you to PCPartPicker for sponsoring this series. I will be continuing it next month in July, and that's coming up sooner rather than later since the June episode was delayed. I have links to the PCPartPicker lists and the products that I talked about down in the video description, so check those out. Thank you very much for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one.